Let's head into our final session of today, and it is an incredible live panel with some incredible guests. The panel's called Upscaling Your Digital Service Delivery During Challenging Times. In this discussion, we'll hear from 4 charity members who've all worked hard to deliver remote services this year. They'll be discussing their varying experiences, approaches, and learnings from digitisation. You can expect a lot of examples, including remote mental health services, counselling support, employee assistance, and providing digital training. So I'm going to hand over to the panel host, Hannah Page, who's the Marketing and Communications Manager at the Association of Charitable Organisations. I'll hand over to her to introduce the rest of the panel and take you through. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you, Chris. No, thanks for the introduction. And hi, everyone. A very warm welcome to this panel discussion this afternoon. So my name is Hannah. As Chris said, I am Marketing and Communications Manager at the Association for Charitable Organisations. You can just call us ACO. We are the umbrella body that brings together charities that provide grants and support to individuals. These charities are also called benevolent funds, which you can imagine has been an incredibly busy sector helping people through this pandemic. And all our charity members have faced different challenges in how they could continue to provide their services to beneficiaries remotely while we have all been in lockdown. So we're here today to discuss upscaling your digital service delivery during challenging times. And we have brought together 4 of our lovely member charities of different shapes and sizes. They've all done different but excellent work in swiftly moving their services online and making their organisations more digital during this pandemic. So I'd like to welcome to our panel, we have Aidan Jones, who is Chief Executive at Relate. Hi, Aidan. We have Trudy Clements, who is Director at ABTA Lifeline. We have Jessica French, who is Development Manager at CABA. And last but not least, we have Leanne Quinn, who is Marketing and Communications Manager at Foothold. Hi, Leanne. So I'm just going to give each of our panelists a minute or so to introduce themselves and their charities, starting with Aidan from Relate, if that's okay.
So, hello everybody, it's great to be part of this conference. I'm Aidan Jones, the Chief Executive of Relate. Relate has existed for around 80 years and we support people, probably were perceived as supporting people at a particular point in their life when they have a crisis situation, but we seek to support them in a much longer time frame in any times of relationship stress. So that's my introduction. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Aidan. Trudy, would you like to let us know a little bit about ABTA Lifeline?
Thank you, Hannah, and good afternoon, everybody. And firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today. I look after a charity called ABTA Lifeline. It's ABTA's charity, and we look after people in the travel industry when they fall on hard times. So as you're all probably aware, our industry was one of the first to be hit by the pandemic. It's likely to be one of the last to recover. And therefore, we do have an awful lot of people that are in need of our help right now. In fact, I think it's really important to say that there's never been more an important time for charities such as ours. So that's what I do. I look after people in travel. Thank you, Hannah.
That's great. Thank you, Trudy. Jessica, would you like to let us know a bit more about CABA?
Sure. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really happy to be here. So I'm a development manager at CABA. CABA is a benevolent association for chartered accountants and their families. So we provide all types of well-being support to the chartered accountant community.
That's great. Thank you, Jessica. And Leanne, would you let us know a little bit more about Foothold, please?
Sure, Hannah, thank you again for having us today. I'm Leanne Quinn and I'm the Marketing Communication Manager at Foothold, which is a benevolent fund. We set up to support engineers and their families all over the world. And in end of 2009, we went through a full rebrand.
That's great. Thank you, Leanne. So my first question, and so I'm just going to start with the questions, but please feel free if any of the audience have any questions for our panelists today to pop them in the Q&A box and we'll address them partway through the session. But my first question is going to go to Aidan, as you must have done considerable work moving something so reliant on face-to-face contact as counselling online during this time. So at the start of the pandemic, what challenges did you see in terms of still being able to assist individuals and provide your counselling services remotely, and what led you to consider a digital solution?
Let me answer the last part of that question first. What led us to consider a digital solution was, quite frankly, we had no other option. For this part of what we do, and I'm pleased that we'll be able to talk more broadly, but the part which is what we're known for and what we've done for, as I say, around about 80 years, has been about talking to people and helping people in the space of a room of some sort. So the change was phenomenal for us. Of course, for a number of years, we've been trying to do things differently. We've had some success, but we were suddenly faced just nearly a year ago now with the prospect of that piece of our activity, which is so critical, just not being able to be done in the way that we've always done it. So the mindset within the organisation was quite difficult to sort of, oh, it's understatement to say quite difficult. And what amazed us all is that within a period of 2 weeks, we went from a position of being very daunted by the whole prospect of being able to respond and being probably lacking the confidence as individuals, as an organisation, that we could do it, to having surprised ourselves and to actually replacing quite quickly what was traditionally a in-the-room service to a service that we were delivering online. So for us, the actual challenge, I think, was of course it was practical in the sense of technology and Zoom and equipment and so on, but probably the initial challenge was our own mindset, and actually that's probably given us more confidence to do more widely in the years since then. And I'm sure we'll touch upon that in some of the other points of question and discussion, but our mindset, I think, was our initial biggest challenge.
Yeah, well, that's great, Aidan. I think that's the thing. It's like we've all thought of doing things digitally, maybe delayed and divvied about it a bit or tried different things, but it's really kind of pushed us and countries up and down the country to, have to move digitally during these times. Jessica, from a slightly different perspective, what led you to consider a digital solution when supporting your beneficiaries being chartered accountants?
Yeah, so one of the biggest sort of more immediate challenges was our face-to-face training. We have a very sort of well-oiled training machine. We're used to doing it face-to-face, lots of moving parts. We train between 8,000 and 10,000 people a year. And February and March is really the time that we get going for that, the year of training. So it was first a question of whether to postpone or cancel training. We were canceling things in other countries like Hong Kong that were seeing their pandemics first. So it seems silly now that we even questioned, oh, should we just postpone this for a few months or cancel it? But very much like, well, eventually we got to a place where we did a complete ban on all face-to-face training. But very much like Aidan, we moved to digital because we realized this wasn't a short-term blip. And in order to keep reaching people, that's what we needed to do. And I think there was a bit of a mindset shift as well, the technical shift, but with people kind of, once they got used to being from home and being used to log on every day, it just got a bit easier. And thankfully, a lot of the organizations we work with, a lot of the coaches and trainers and other charities like Relate, they were moving digital as well. So it just kind of became a thing that everyone was doing.
And going back to Aidan, how did you find the initial steps when you first had to start moving your services online? What were the key challenges you had and how did you overcome them? And did you need to follow a different process to what you'd normally follow to put them into place so quickly?
Yeah, I think that the word I would use is mobilize. We managed to mobilize the organization. So we have our clinical team, who wanted to ensure that the guidance and the support we gave to our counsellors ensured that they could operate in this new environment. We had our IT team who had to make sure we had the equipment and the Zoom licenses and so on. We had all sorts of different aspects of the organization mobilized to quickly identify the aspects of what we were trying to achieve that we weren't already aware of, and to quickly find solutions. And I would say the period of almost denial was relatively short. The time when people said, well, we might as well just go home, we can't do anything, was probably only 24 hours or 48 hours maximum. And once we got some momentum and some mobilization, actually people rose to the challenge incredibly well. And in a sort of 2 to 3 week period, so probably about 2 weeks before we really got it going really well. But in that sort of third week, fourth week, the reaction and the responses we got from people within the organisation, proud and pleased and a bit amazed that we'd achieved what we'd done in that time. And of course, the other piece that was critical to us was our user experience, was that up to the mark? Were they receiving an input which was of the same value or better than they were before? And that is something we've not only followed from the very beginning, we've continued to track to try to understand that. And our overall assessment of that is, yes, it is. And in some cases, it's better because actually for some people we're helping, they can have greater flexibility around timings of interventions because people don't have to travel the same and so on. So sometimes it's even a better option and it works better. But there are some things that we have to be careful of as well. So we're really conscious and we're still learning on that. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, thank you, Aidan. I mean, Jessica, have you seen a similar situation within your charity? Or have you found different challenges from moving your training online?
Yeah, some similar challenges. I would actually say that we faced a challenge of our staff being quite motivated and kind of in the middle of working on projects when they just had to up and leave and move home. People sort of came up with their own solutions, which meant that as an organization, we were not using the same platform. So we had some people on Google Hangouts, some people on Teams, and we also had hardware issues with people just trying to scrabble together what they could use with their iPads at home and things like that. So we, after I think maybe a month or two, decided we really need to do a tech audit, mostly of hardware and budget for company laptops. And that was the best way to kind of make the work that we were doing secure and also deal with, old or faulty tech. We had to find the budget for that because obviously we didn't plan for that. But it was not that hard given the stoppage that we put on travel and face-to-face training and things like that.
That's great, thank you, Jessica. So Trudy, from a different perspective within your charity, I mean, your charity was hugely involved with assisting more beneficiaries than normal, even before the pandemic, due to the Thomas Cook collapse in 2019. In light of this and your charity needing to make changes to respond to the huge increase in inquiries that you had, did you feel this helped prepare you for even more inquiries coming in during the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely, Hannah. I mean, for us, going back to September 2019, when Thomas Cook collapsed, we were looking at potentially 9,000 UK employees that were made redundant and could be coming to the charity for support. So we were expecting a tsunami in September, and sure enough, we did receive it. And we are a tiny charity. We're a small charity, 2 of us working at the time to manage this. So for us, the only way we could move forward was certainly going online and going digital. So we had to put in place some simple steps to be able to support that community back in that September. And that for us was, putting the clear information on our website, doing a quick online form, talking to our web provider to, get all the links put into the website that we needed, and really putting in place that emergency support so that digitally people could apply easily and we can get an award sent out to them in time and in a timely fashion. So to give you an example, within an 8-week period with a team of 2, we got out £150,000 in food vouchers very quickly. And I think from that, definitely we came out of the Thomas Cook crisis. We were still managing it at the beginning of the year when we went into, the COVID, the pandemic. And as I said at the beginning, we were one of the first industries to be affected. And we knew that the tsunami wasn't going to stop. So yes, we are continually reviewing what we do, how we can do it, how we can be more efficient, especially with such a small team working on it.
That's great, thank you. I mean, you touched on something there that I was going to ask about for other small charities listening on this call that are wondering how you managed to cope with all the influx being such a small staff team. Do you have any tips for any small charities listening as to what they can do to kind of improve their services?
I think some of the things I've certainly learnt over the last year is, you can't change the world in a day. We talk about digital transformation, but for us, it's very much part of a journey. We've implemented those small steps to make changes, to make our processes more efficient. So as I mentioned, simple online application forms so that we can reach people, changing the content on a website, making it clear, giving people all the details that they need to contact us if we need it. And then looking towards how we adapt our services and the service provision to people, working closely with our board. You know, what decisions could we start to make in-house? What meetings could we have online? And in fact, I have to say I have a very good dynamic board, and I've probably met them more times over the last year than I did, you know, pre-pandemic, because, you know, they're all UK wide, but we have this ability now to meet virtually. And, you know, we've had 2 strategy days already to talk about recovery and, you know, new opportunities, how we can build back better. Keeping your network really important, engage, get new ideas, learn from other people, benchmark. I think those are really, you know, really key things to helping us. But certainly, yeah, working with people and yeah, seeing what you can do, get those low hanging fruit before you try and tackle some of those bigger, you know, things that need to happen really.
Yeah, that sounds very sensible advice. Thank you, Trudy. Leanne, your charity underwent, as you said at the start, a rebrand very shortly before the pandemic, in the months before, literally. And you worked very closely with your beneficiaries and consulting them during this process. Did you find this helped prepare you for some of the changes you needed during the pandemic? And how drastically did you have to move away from your planned strategy?
It definitely helped us. Previously, we were called IET Connect, and we weren't digital much at all. And part of the rebrand, we wanted to make the website almost a support content machine. And so we really appreciated the importance of digital. The challenge was in knowing where we wanted to go as a new brand and the deliberate, thoughtful steps to get there. That had to go out of the window. We had to move much more quickly, and actually there were places we couldn't plug the gaps, so we sought collaborations with other organisations, which has been wonderful, and we've seen an increase of just financial support has tripled in the pandemic period, and so we've had to be a lot more mobilised in how we support people. And I'd actually say, though it was a challenge, I think it was Helen in the chat has said it helps bring people together, and it really does, because we've seen monthly meetings happening between all staff. We now meet weekly, and I actually talk to more people than I did before because we're all on Zoom and it's easy just to make contact with people. And it's just about touching base and getting other ideas, and knowing that as the marketing team or as SMT, we don't have all of the answers, and we need to be listening to a community and to our teams as to how we improve our digital platforms. Hannah, I don't know if it's just me, but I missed the first part of that.
Oh, that might be my internet connection, maybe. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Cool. No, it's just basically thanking you for your comments anyway, so that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So this is a question for everyone, really. So did any of you meet any internal resistance when looking to kind of change your processes and what you're doing kind of day to day to be more digital during this pandemic, from either sort of your board members or your staff members? And what did this look like, and how did you kind of manage this within your organisation? Maybe starting with Aidan.
Yeah, I think we had a very small number who weren't sure that this is something they wanted to do in terms of our councils. And to be fair, we probably still have a few who are of the belief that it's in the room is needed. And we respect that, and we have to work with that. But it was a very small number. I think the piece, it wasn't so much about the actual move to service delivery virtually. It was about when might we get back to what we called normal. And it's almost difficult now to remember back in, well, let's say it all started nearly a year ago, back in April, May, June last year, when we, alongside many other organisations and charities, were sort of saying, when's this going to end? And trying to plan for that. And I would say about 6 or 8 weeks into it, we as a management team, in conjunction with our board, took a position of saying we assume that we wouldn't do anything back in the room before September. And that seems like obvious now as we sit here in March 2021. But at that time, there was quite a resistance to say, surely we'll be able to go back to what we're used to sooner than that. But we had some insight. We had a particular trustee who works in the sphere of the whole response to COVID. And that gave us some insight, it gave us some confidence, and it also gave us a way to plan for that, because I'm sure other panelists and other people from other organizations will agree. The thing that has been hardest, I think, in the last 12 months has been the uncertainty and the unpredictability, nothing to hold on to because the situation's changing constantly. And so at least when we said it won't be before September, and then of course later as we got towards September, we revised that and we said it won't be until the next financial year in April 2021 minimum. So, you know, it gave us something that we could work with rather than constantly asking the question. So I think that's where the two areas of resistance we had, I would highlight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that uncertainty, I mean, for us at ACO, for example, not knowing when we can run kind of training and events, if it has to be in person or virtual. I remember when we left the office, sitting next to a colleague was like, is this going to last a few weeks? And I said, oh, maybe months. But yeah, here we are nearly a year later. So yeah, no, thank you. Did anyone else have any comments in terms of either resistance or how they sort of approached getting other staff members on board and trained when they might have had kind of different levels of tech competency? Or I don't know if anyone else has any.
Sure. Oh,
Jessica?
yeah, we didn't meet that much resistance, a bit probably, but it was more about the differing tech competencies and people not feeling able to engage with the work that they normally did. So we really tried to foster a sort of a growth mindset across the organization, which meant, for example, we set up Teams champions who were people that anyone in any team could message or call and say, I'm having trouble with this, how do you do it? And the champions didn't necessarily need to be experts. They were just someone who would help try and troubleshoot, even if that meant Googling the problem. And if they couldn't solve it, sending it on to our outsourced IT. So it was just fostering that sort of, you know, we're here to help each other. We're not going to force you to do anything digitally that you don't feel comfortable with, but we're going to try and support you in getting there. And I think that goes the same for our clients as well. Someone in the Q&A has asked about what about clients who aren't, you know, digitally enabled. We still very much do a lot of work by phone. We'll send things by post. So it's really meeting people where they are and trying to support them there, not pushing them too far outside of their comfort zone, but trying to give them options with what will work for them, what's available for them.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Jessica. And it's great you touched on a question I was about to ask, a very good question from Rose in the chat, as to how anyone else on the panel has helped enable your beneficiaries clients to kind of engage with your new services if they don't have the relevant hardware. Is there anything you've done to kind of help them keep up with that tech? Leanne?
We've quite early on, actually, into the lockdown, somebody came up with the idea of writing to some of our older beneficiaries just a handwritten letter just to ask how they're doing and if they would like to join a befriending scheme, basically. And we've seen a really good turnaround there. And also even the people that didn't need that support have then offered to volunteer to be part of it. And it's just thinking about accessibility for people. So we write notes to them, we write letters to them, we have our befriending volunteers who'll call people up. We are thinking as we move forward into a more digital space, how we maintain something like that, because I think in an earlier panel, somebody was talking about that older beneficiaries, older people being scared of tech. And I think it is something to be concerned about. What the answer is, we don't know yet, but we're listening to people.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've seen examples of all across our membership about how to kind of engage with older beneficiaries. I've seen some really nice ideas from just like providing training videos or just like step-by-step guides and things. I think it was one of our members that kind of introduced a Facebook community to replace a coffee morning, basically. And they basically called them up on the phone to help them get onboarded, but yeah, I suppose that depends on how many beneficiaries you have and things. There's some really nice ideas that have gone around. So just going into another question in the chat. So as we gradually return to a post-COVID new normal, do the panel think the urgency to move digital delivery would diminish in any way? So I suppose it's like, we continue towards digital, will you move some stuff back to face-to-face? Are you looking at a hybrid? Does anyone have any feedback on what they're planning to do in that area?
Yeah, Hannah, to pick up on that, I don't think we'll be going backwards. I think we'll certainly be, still moving forwards. We'll be going towards a hybrid system. As the other panelists have said, we do have sometimes an older population that still want a paper copy of an application form, but actually for us, the majority of our people are sort of the younger travel agent community. So they're very tech savvy, they want everything online. That brings with it other sort of issues, such as they do expect you to respond really, really quickly. And when you are inundated with people needing help, it is that kind of expectation that they send an email or an online form, they expect you to get back the same day. So it has different expectations, but certainly I think going forward, we will still be looking at how not only that we recover over the next 6 months, but definitely how we can refine and look to make things, slick and more efficient. We'll consult with our beneficiaries to see how they found the user journey experience and what else we can do. And certainly one of the things we're now looking at is a CRM, how we can make our online form better, how we can store our data more effectively, and all of that. I think it's very much here to stay. And certainly in terms of sort of working with my board, I think we're going to move to a more of a virtual system with maybe a meetup once a year or something. It's worked exceptionally well for us. I have the delegated responsibilities. When I need to consult with the board, I do. When we need to meet for our meetings, it all works incredibly well. And actually, I found our trustee meetings are actually timely, more efficient. They're working incredibly well. So definitely all positive for the future.
Yeah. No, thank you, Trudy. I think similar from kind of our, oh, sorry, Leanne, you go next.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think it's not to sound insensitive, obviously, for a lot of people, this is a really hard time, but it's been an eye-opener in terms of accessibility, because there's staff members that would never have been able to have worked in the way they do if they had to come into the office, balancing childcare. There's another organisation we're closely working with, they have somebody who has MS and quite seriously MS. They're on the board now, which they wouldn't have been able to do. So I just think while it's definitely challenging, and I think it's definitely taxing on people's mental health, the fact that we're all moving towards digital just means we're opening up opportunities for so many other people and so many insights that we probably wouldn't have had before. And I don't want to speak just for myself here, but I talk to people in my organisation more than I did when we were in the office, because everyone worked different hours. And I feel closer to people now because you just make an effort to talk to one another. And I just think that's a really good boon for a horrible situation that we should probably take advantage of.
Well, from what I've heard, like hybrid seems to be the way forward, whether that is kind of a mix between working at home, working in the office, and also in terms of kind of services. I know from our perspective, like we start running, virtual events, and we've managed to kind of get engagement from charities up and down the country, whereas before they were very London centric. And I think, going forward, it's still nice to be able to see people face to face, but yeah, the advantages of being able to engage a diverse audience from running virtual events has definitely been a benefit. Yeah, so just having a look at any other questions. So we've got a few more minutes left. So in terms of, you've had to all become more digital organisations. What does being a digital organisation kind of mean for you? And do you feel that you're now a digital organisation? Or if not, what steps do you feel you still need to take in order to kind of reach the status? Does anyone have any feedback on that? Or I was going to ask Aidan, because you're unmuted, so I'll go to you.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say that we are a digital organisation yet. We're on a journey. And in fact, we had started work on this before the pandemic. And it's I know it's a bit of a cliche, but the challenges of the last 12 months have also presented many opportunities, and it's accelerated some of the things we would have wanted to do anyway. So I think that's really, really important. I think the other thing, in the previous section, we were talking about user experience. And I think to us, that's critical. And that's actually in seeking to engage properly digitally, and we're adopted, or we have adopted, a digital first approach, not a digital only, but a digital first. We've realized that we need to actually think about what is the user experience, what is the customer journey with us, because it prompts that thinking, and so it's incredibly beneficial. And I think that's where, and recently we've introduced a chatbot, and that's already in a short time has given us some incredible insights that we didn't know before. So we are on that journey. It's unstoppable. So I have no doubt that it will change us, and it will change. And our focus is, how does it change the user experience to be better and more enhanced? And I think the big question is, in terms of the core piece of work at the crisis point, the in-the-room counselling, what will that mix, what will that hybrid be in terms of percentages? I think we just don't know that yet. But in any case, we consider that we want to broaden the way we help people, not just at the point when things have gone terribly wrong. And digital gives us a much greater capacity and capability to do that. So we're investing in it, not just with whatever resource we can find, but emotionally and organizationally. It's really important for us.
Thank you, Aidan. And Leanne?
Yeah, I think, Aidan, you hit the nail on the head there. It's about that constant learning. I think that's what digital really is, because what's digital today is something different tomorrow. And digital for us also means we can gather data in ways that we just couldn't do manually before. And we can see patterns of behaviour, and we can open up dialogue with our community more and understand their behaviours and their needs in a way that we couldn't before. And again, that's a journey, as Aidan touched on, but that just helps form where we're going. There is no destination. There's just this digital journey, and having that data there and the ability to look into those insights really helps inform that.
That's great, thank you, Leanne. Following on for that, as we're talking about insights, there's a good question in the chat about feedback that you've had from your service users. And can anyone give kind of any insights, any positive feedback, any things you need to work on from feedback you've had, if anyone's willing to share? Or oh, sorry, we'll go to Trudy first.
No,
then.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, I mean, from a small charity perspective, certainly in terms of user experience, we've had feedback. We try and follow up with everybody. Generally, people find the experience easy to access. Easy accessible, and very quick to respond. However, there are things, there's always going to be glitches in the system. So for example, a simple online form such as ours doesn't sort of check people's eligibility to apply for help from the charity or whatever else. So it does lack a level of sophistication where we were operating at the beginning. So definitely, some of the feedback that we've had through has certainly made it possible for us now going forward to look at, what the next step in the journey is. If it is going down this CRM route, what processes, what systems do we need to build in so that we can manage all of people's expectations going forward? So it's a learning experience, it's a journey, as we've all said.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's been learning for everyone, particularly during this such uncertain time where everything's been new. This feedback's been very valuable. And Jessica, you were going to say as well.
Yeah, it's really just to say that we've used the same metrics for outcomes and feedback that we did when we were offering face-to-face. So being able to compare those, we're really happy if we see something stay the same or even get better, like would you recommend, this course or this service. For the things that have gone down, then that gives us the impetus to kind of look into why, how we can address that. And I think, very much being digital for us is about offering choice and control. So, and trying to position it that digital or face-to-face isn't better, one or the other isn't better, but this offers you this, that offers you that. There's, as Aidan mentioned earlier, the flexibility in scheduling a counseling session from home doesn't necessarily mean it's better or worse, but it's kind of that personal choice of what works for you.
Yeah, that's great. Just to address another one in the chat as we're sort of running lower on time now. So has anyone got any pitfalls from some of their learning experiences that they want to advise other charities to look out for when you kind of started your journeys on this process? No, that's absolutely. Oh,
No, Hannah, the only thing I'd say is it's like, I know my headset's not working properly now. So with digital, there is always challenges, and I'm not probably the most up to speed. My kids tell me an awful lot more than what I know. So it is very much a learning experience. We get it wrong sometimes. The website has glitches. The form suddenly stops or isn't loading. So we're constantly learning the whole way through. We really are. So and as you know, one of the panelists said, what is new today will not be new tomorrow. So we have to constantly evolve and be innovative and creative in our approaches going forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, oh, sorry, Leanne. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Alison in the chat mentioned something around staff retention and training, and job roles today don't look the same as they do before. And I think that's probably the biggest pitfall, is just managing the expectations of staff and making reasonable adjustments, and also understanding the personal challenges that they're going through as well. So we have a CBT therapist, and each month we send out a doodle poll for our staff members to have a session with him and just check in, and we try to have personal touches with them where we can. And it's about supporting people to learn and just adjust things and be patient. And I think that is the biggest pitfall, because if you expect everybody to be on the same level, I'm not a digital expert. I learn as I go, and there's things I definitely don't know, but it's just about encouraging that mindset of learning and developing. I think is really important and can help you navigate some of those pitfalls.
And absolutely, I think, yeah, patience and understanding and things when we're all going through these changes, yeah, is great. Yeah, sorry, Trudy, you would.
I just wanted to pick up a point for a small charity as well. I mean, as I say, I've got a couple of volunteers working for me now. That's been one of the kind of innovations for us going forward. But it's really important in small charities, we don't have a huge workforce to access on a regular basis. And so there are times where you feel relatively isolated. So that's when it comes back to the network and using organisations such as yourselves, ACO, and other small charity networks to really sort of talk through issues, benchmark ideas, and engage. And I think those support networks are really, really important at this time as well.
That's great. Thank you for saying that, Trudy. That's fantastic. Aidan, sorry, did you want to get on as well?
I'm not sure it's a pitfall exactly, but it's something to be very conscious of. We've reflected how it's easier to bring people together to have meetings and so on. And the trustee meetings, people don't have to travel, and you can have meetings more frequently and so on. And those are some of the real advantages. But there is no doubt about it that some of the human contact, some of the coffee break, having a chat, those things are really quite difficult to manage. And my mind is thinking that we're going to, not talking about what we deliver to our clients now, but as how we operate. Well, I'm sure we're going to do more of this in the longer term. But I'm thinking when we do come together, we must give a good chunk of time, not as just going straight into an agenda like we tend to do on Zoom, where people can have a cup of coffee and talk for half an hour and talk about families and friends and what's happening in our lives, because that is what we miss. And people might call it office banter. It might be when we have a trustee meetings and people, as they arrive, we talk for 5, 10, 20 minutes, whatever. That's what we've got to get back, because that brings a lot of value, I think. And we do it a bit on Zoom. We have a coffee on a Zoom or something, but it isn't the same, really. And I think that's the bit that I'm struggling in my mind how to do it, other than when we meet, be conscious, don't just put the hour in, put the hour and a half in and say, and we'll stop for a break and we'll have biscuits and we'll have coffee and we'll just spend time together. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've had a few members say to me recently, oh, the first ACO event we have back is just a social to catch up with each other over some drinks or a coffee. So yeah, I think that's something we've all missed and I think is incredibly important. So yeah, I think we're coming to the end of our time. I'm just going to put one last question to you all, which is from the chat. But if you can name one thing you're planning to revisit as we hopefully come out of lockdown, what would that be for each of you? And maybe starting with Aidan.
Planning to revisit. Well, I think it's what I've just said. Actually,
Yeah.
I think that's
Okay.
the
Yeah.
case. You know, how do we reconnect, not just via a virtual link or a digital link, but how do we reconnect as humans? I think that's really the biggest thing for me.
Absolutely. Trudy, is there one thing that you're looking to have another look at after lockdown?
Yeah, I mean, same as Aidan. It is about, I mean, we're in a very, you know, our industry is very social. So, you know, a lot of the work that I do would have been done in a face-to-face environment. It would be at a conference overseas, you know, event fundraising for us. There's only so much we can do digitally. And actually, I can't fundraise currently from an industry that's been completely decimated. So for us, yeah, relooking at some of those strategies, for us, it will be looking at income diversification, for example, going into this year, we've got to revisit that, how we generate our income streams. But going forward, coming out of this in the next 6 months, for us, it'd be revisiting those conferences, those events, and how we can build back better, definitely.
Great, thank you. Jessica, is there one thing from you as well?
Well, there's many things, so I was struggling to pick one, but I think it stretches both with our staff and our beneficiaries. It is looking for digital services or platforms that could offer something potentially better than face-to-face, that or aren't just trying to replicate face-to-face, but also how to build that community, both when we are together physically and digitally, because we know it's going to be both. We can reach more people. So similarly with staff, you know, how can we encourage people to pick up the phone more and have an impromptu, you know, put a half-hour chat in Zoom, and keep that community, that innovation, that is going to happen probably more and more on a screen, but also when we can go back, that kind of fosters that that community feeling, I guess. So it's all about community, really, for us.
Yeah. And Leanne, is there one thing you're looking to revisit, hopefully after lockdown ends as well?
Yes, actually, we're looking to revisit some research we did prior to the rebrand. It was a big research piece to ascertain what our community's needs and behaviours were, and we suspect that those have drastically changed since then, and that helped inform our 3-year strategy at the time. So that's something we'll be revisiting, definitely.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you.
Yeah, just yeah, I think we've come to the end of our time now, so I'll just wrap up by thanking each of our 4 panelists for joining us. So thank you, Jessica, Leanne, Trudy, Aidan, for joining us here today and for sharing your fascinating insights and learnings from the journeys you've had over the past year. And we hope the audience is able to take away some of your wisdom to use within your own charities after the conference. If I saw there's a few other questions that came in, so if anyone in the audience has any other questions for myself or the panelists, we're going to be heading over to Remo, I believe, in a second. But in the meantime, I'll pass back to Chris, but thank you very much for having us here today, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, all, and especially to Hannah for being an incredible host of an amazing panel. You really encapsulated what us here at Charity Digital and the Be More Digital conference is all about. So thank you very much. If you would like to continue speaking to Hannah and the panel, they will be on Remo in just a moment, so you can go up and catch with them then. Thanks again, all, and we'll see you in a bit.